Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, the prequel story to Breath of the Wild, has set Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel and Skyward Sword HD out of 2020. Meanwhile, on February 21st, we have the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, and we know for certain that it will be celebrated. After all, in 2006 for the 20th anniversary, 2011 for the 25th anniversary, and 2016 for the 30th anniversary, Nintendo pulled off or at least planned big anniversaries for the franchise. 2020 has given us the Breath of the Wild prequel in the form of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. This game is a story prequel more than a gameplay prequel, so in this video we'll go over what could happen during the big Zelda year and anniversary of 2021, beginning from February to December, and we are aiming for 3,500 likes on this video so it matches 35 years of Zelda. Also, subscribe if you like more Zelda videos, as too few of you watching are subscribed, we have the numbers. And press that bell and again for all notifications, since we are also aiming for 300,000 subscribers before February 21st. Thank you so much for 265,000 subscribers. But now, let's dive into the year that could give us Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and Zelda Skyward Sword HD Remastered. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity might just be the beginning of a bigger Zelda year, as the 35th anniversary begins on February 21st. In other words, Mario's anniversary is likely to seamlessly transition into Zelda's anniversary. In this regard, we know that March has in recent years become a Zelda month. Twilight Princess HD launched on March 4th, 2016, and Breath of the Wild on March 3rd, 2017. Speaking of Twilight Princess HD, and for that matter Wind Waker HD, they could be deluxed for the anniversary in 2021, especially since Twilight Princess HD and the Wind Waker HD only sold 1.12 and 2.31 million copies on the Wii U. They are begging for a deluxe bundle. With those two covered, let's get back to February 2021, which could bring the reveal of Skyward Sword HD and launch, maybe not in March as that could be too close to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, or perhaps in April or May. A 2 to 3 month reveal to release cycle could be great to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the game that celebrated Zelda's 25th anniversary, and all of that for the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda. Anniverception. Joking aside, this would be the perfect way to kick off the anniversary with a bang, as Skyward Sword is the second worst selling 3D Zelda to date, and that on Nintendo's best selling home console. But there are some reasons why it didn't perform better. Number 1, launching after the announcement of the Wii U at E3 2011 in what was the Wii's final year on the market. Number 2, in order to play the game you had to own or buy the Wii Motion Plus attachment or Wii Motion Plus controller. And number 3 was Skyrim. In other words, with 3.63 million copies sold of the game worldwide, it is likely to assume that more than an absolute majority of Nintendo Switch owners and with it Breath of the Wild players have never played Skyward Sword. A massive market of 18.6 million sold Breath of the Wild copies, where at least 15 plus million of them have never played Zelda Skyward Sword. Now, what if I tell you that no other Zelda game is tied closer to Breath of the Wild than Skyward Sword? Everything from the reincarnating hatred, Goddess Hylia, Zelda's powers, and even the Master Sword and the design of it in Breath of the Wild all derive back to Skyward Sword. After all, both games were directed by Hidemaro Fujibayashi, so in order to push Skyward Sword HD, Nintendo can utilize a very simple trick when revealing and marketing the game, which is used all the time in the film industry. From the director of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild comes the HD origin story of The Lasting Curse, all while showing Mummy Ganondorf from the Breath of the Wild sequel. A genius way to market 4 games in one single sentence. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Breath of the Wild, which is available on Nintendo Switch, the about to be revealed Skyward Sword HD, and the upcoming Breath of the Wild 2. Then you show the 2 Master Sword designs, which are identical, and do all you can to tie Skyward Sword as the origin story to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and Breath of the Wild specifically, while also hiding teasers of Breath of the Wild 2. Everyone in the gaming community will go nuts, and Skyward Sword HD will crush the sales of the original Wii version of the game, all in a matter of a minute or 2. It is a golden opportunity that is just laying there, perfect way to market the game as the origin story to Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild 2. Now, we all know that Nintendo might be working on a new Nintendo Switch model for 2021, and that this time they might not only improve the battery life, but also the graphical performance of existing and upcoming games. Hence, why they might want to keep Breath of the Wild 2 away until, well, if the model is coming, is revealed, and encourage consumers to get the new Zelda on the new Nintendo Switch model. Pretty much how PlayStation shows captured on PS4 Pro instead on the base model PS4 to let you know that the base model PS4 version will look worse. A simple marketing trick to make you upgrade to the ultimate graphical experience. So yes, Breath of the Wild 2's further marketing and partially Skyward Sword HD's marketing might be impacted by a mid-gen upgrade to the base model Nintendo Switch, or maybe even a Nintendo Switch Pro model. Let's say that Skyward Sword HD has a similar short reveal cycle, reveal in February and release in April or May 2021. A brilliant way to reignite hype for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, so then what? The year is still very long and a lot could still happen between April or May 2021 when all the 18+ million Breath of the Wild players might finally get their hands on Skyward Sword HD, and December. Obviously, the worldwide situation might still be a thing and could amputate potential events like say a Zelda Symphony Orchestra, Symphony of the Goddess revival, and obviously E3 and Gamescom, which might force more digital online events and less live audience and hands-on demos. So could we see some Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 special releases like the Battle Royale Super Mario 35, but for NES Zelda, or a special Game & Watch release? It is entirely possible, though I wouldn't put my money on it, as Nintendo has different priorities with Zelda, namely getting the next installment, the sequel to Breath of the Wild, done, and make sure that Skyward Sword, the Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD are able to sell more copies than they did on the Wii and Wii U. In other words, we think that Zelda's anniversary, much like in 2011, and as it was originally planned in 2016, will be more spread out, but with bigger games and releases when the time for the next act on the 2021 program arrives. In 2011, we got Ocarina of Time 3D in June, with the announcement of the Zelda Symphony Orchestra at E3 and then Skyward Sword in November, and the reveal of the official Zelda timeline through the new Zelda Bible, Hyrule Historia, to cap the year off, well, at least in Japan. So perhaps much like in 2011, we could see Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for N64 Nintendo Switch Online to have all 3D Zeldas in a way on the Nintendo Switch, which could make sense with the limited release window of Super Mario 3D All-Stars until the end of March. Alternatively, we could see an equivalent in a form of a Zelda 3D All-Stars, with Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD in one Triforce, or in this case, Ganondorf Collection, and then Skyward Sword HD being sold separately as it ties to Demise. But enough about only remasters, remakes and re-releases, as 2021 will no doubt stand in the sign of one game that will likely follow the marketing of all the other releases and events, the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Obviously, the game will more than likely now be slated for holiday 2021 after the update from series producer Eiji Aonuma and November 2020 being filled by Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. No doubt, Breath of the Wild will be the game that will crown 2021 as one of the best Zelda years ever. Just think of it, before the anniversary itself, Age of Calamity, then Skyward Sword HD's 10th anniversary, possibly Breath of the Wild 2, and plenty of physical or at least online events. No doubt, unless the new Nintendo Switch model comes out early next year, then Skyward Sword HD should be used as the big build-up, starting with it in April or May, and then throughout the year go through the Zelda timeline, Ocarina of Time, the Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. And then as we approach the holiday in November, boom, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. And a very fitting date would be Friday, November 19th, exactly 1 week prior to Black Friday 2021. That way, players around the world could, before the release and the build-up thanks to a Skyward Sword HD, or what could be a Zelda Ganondorf collection, go through the entire Zelda timeline, game by game, and learn the lore by heart before entering the latest adventure in the series, and with it the timeline. What an incredible PR campaign that could be. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity first pushing Breath of the Wild, then Breath of the Wild pushing Skyward Sword HD, Skyward Sword HD pushing a 3D Zelda Ganondorf collection, and with it increased sales until the biggest seller of them all. The sequel to the best-selling Zelda game of all time breaks all possible sales records for a Zelda sequel upon launch, making 2021 the ultimate Zelda year for Nintendo, with the continuation of the Hero of the Wilds and Zelda of the Wild's long struggle to bring peace to Hyrule, and this time bring the fight to, you guessed it, Ganondorf, and through him, Demise's curse itself. We know that Nintendo is building up something truly big and special for the Zelda year of 2021. Obviously, much like is the case for Mario's 35th, we'll see new merchandise, but probably not new Zelda books. At least not in the West in 2021. Still, it will be a big celebration, and if it follows the calendar that we outlined throughout this video, then even with our big audience events and hands-on demos prior to the 2021 releases, 2021 could easily challenge 2011 for the biggest Zelda year to date. And then, even if it isn't as big as we have envisioned in this video, it will always be bigger than Metroid, which is also celebrating 35 years in 2021. But what do you think? Will the year of Zelda 35, that is 2021, start with Skyward Sword HD and end with Zelda Breath of the Wild 2? Sound off in the comment section down below. And obviously be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as we know that way too many of you are still not subscribed, and subscribing really helps the channel. And it helps even more if you also press that notification bell, and again for all notifications. Anyway, a big thanks to you for watching, and all you great patreon.com/Commonwealth patrons, and in particular to our royal producer Charles Shash. But now enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.